Yo, Sleepy Sheepy here. Welcome back to another Bad Red Man Bounty Board Challenge run, the bi-weekly set of challenges that asks us to perform a number of difficult and goofy invasions for your viewing pleasure. This week we'll be throwing some clumps, crashing with some shields, channeling our inner Weeb, and much more. And if you're in need of a break from the everyday sweatiness, or just want another injection of that sweet, sweet copium that this game isn't completely dead and that From Software has not abandoned us forever, then look no further. As always, if you wouldn't mind considering subscribing, I definitely appreciate it, but let's go ahead and jump in. Alright, so for the first challenge we have Ooops All Shields, which is going to be a shield-based challenge. It's pretty straightforward. You just use a shield for the entire duration of your invasion, and we're going to be using a blood-infused spiked great shield. And we're going to be running Shield Crash on this for two reasons. The first one is that it has more hits than Shield Bash, and the second one is because you can get a nice gravity kill with it. There is the concern potentially that you'll get guard broken while using Shield Crash, which is not the case and is not possible with Shield Bash, but because you're two-handing the shield, nobody can actually grab the riposte for that guard break, so that's a very nice benefit of using the two-handed shield moveset, and it makes using Shield Crash a little bit safer. So not too difficult. First off, we get a nice 2v1 that's pretty successful, and next up we have a nice one-on-one, which is actually very true to the name, where only shields will be used by both the host and myself. So that was extremely lucky. I was very surprised to get a player that was just running only shields, and so we're going to have a good old-fashioned shield off. Now they've got a pretty strong option. They've got the fingerprint shield with some cold infusion, so do need to be scared about that, but they are predominantly going for their Ash of War, and I think going for some mix-ups can be very helpful. You'll also note that I put on the Hammer Talisman just to get potential guard breaks, and we're really taking advantage of the high blood loss buildup that does get applied. Now, they do go for a guard counter, which is kind of hilarious, but we managed to catch them with a heavy attack, and that does a little over 700 damage with the bleed proc, and we are successful in that shield v shield fight. So exactly what we were looking for this type of challenge, and we come out successfully there. But there's one type of kill with this shield that we have not gotten, and that's a gravity kill. So we're going to just make quick work of this Phantom and then go find the host, and we're in a pretty good spot to, you know, potentially use ledges to our advantage. Now, I don't normally run just a two-handed great shield, and it is nice. Like, the crouching attack isn't actually too bad. There are a number of options that provide protection, but a lot of them have pretty slow startups. So me going for Shield Crash here, you can see a number of times that I struggle a little bit with getting the timing right, where the CGS just comes out a little bit faster, and I'm not actually getting the shield up in time to successfully grab the Shield Bash. But at this point, we feel like we've gotten the timing down a little bit. We predict their L2, and we do get that Shield Crash right off the ledge. So we can now move on to Flying Blind, and this challenge I really enjoyed. This involves using no HUD and no lock-on, and it's actually just like nice for gameplay. Obviously the menuing kind of distracts from everything a little bit, and the lock-on is kind of a nice feature to have if you're running invasions, but things just look really nice in this scenario. Now, you do have the massive disadvantage of not knowing how much health you have, or your opponents have, or how much stamina you have, or FP, where your consumables are at. So just a number of disadvantages of information that you don't know, just, you know, looking on screen. Also blood loss buildup and stuff, you can't see that. You can do some checking of some of these things by opening your menu and looking at the status bars, so you know, just seeing how much HP you have, but it is a fairly difficult challenge. Now, that first invasion definitely checked the box. Like, we completed the challenge, we killed the host, but I felt like, you know, we want to do something a little bit more spectacular, so we're going to be going for a 3v1 with this challenge, and this is a pretty fun place to invade in the Halig Roots area, and we're going to be using the Power Stance Nagakiba setup, or the 2-cat setup, as it's more affectionately called. And this is going to be a nice weapon setup, because when you don't have lock-on available to you, you want to make sure your hits actually connect, and doing so can be pretty difficult when you have something like, you know, a thrusting sword, where tracking is going to be key and you have very narrow hitboxes. But when you have a Power Stance Katana setup, you have these nice big swings, come out very quickly. You have the crouching attacks, the jumping attacks, the unsheath light attack. All those things don't require the most precise tracking, and actually doing some free aiming with them can be beneficial to changing up the timing. So the no HUD is difficult, because, you know, you can't see all these different stats, but the no lock-on adds its own particular set of challenges where, you know, you really need to be precise with your angles, and you need to have weapons that can kind of support your ability to track your opponents manually. So we do also see some clumping coming out from the side of the light rolling player. So poison clumps are pretty funny, and we'll be using them ad nauseum later on in the showcase. So I was kind of happy to see them coming from the side of, you know, the host or the cooperator. So we're just kind of backing off here. We're trying to make sure that we don't acquire too much status buildup. We're more worried about the bleed than the poison. The poison we'll be able to see and it won't one-shot us, but the bleed is, you know, much scarier. We also do have the advantage of running the tier that gives us a little HP back when we're close to death, and that can be a really nice way to just be aware of how much HP you have. So at this point, we're kind of just baiting our opponents forward, trying to make sure that we're set up nicely, and we do want to have access to some poison as well. So we'll be throwing some fetid pots, not for BM, but mostly just because the light rolling player looks like they will be poisoned rather easily, just because of their lack of armor. So their immunity is going to be quite low, and we'll be able to get that poison on pretty early, and we're slow playing this a little bit more, so having that tick damage on our opponent can be pretty nice. So as we run back into the PvE, we get a couple of hits off with our katanas, and here we can see just how difficult it is to really know when to aggress, where so much of this game is based on just, you know, kind of getting your opponent to half health and then going to, you know, an Ash of War that does half their health and trying to, you know, one-shot them from that point on. So not being able to see when your opponent is half health and just kind of guessing that they're low at a certain point, or, you know, being aware that they haven't healed recently, does make this challenge quite difficult. And you will see me checking my status periodically just to see how much HP I have, and seeing if I need to heal or not, but really trying to be patient, making sure that you give yourself time and space to recover and see where everything is at is super important. There I was hoping for a backstab. Unfortunately, I just got a regular light attack, no grab, and we do manage to back off and avoid the incoming moon. Now we have successfully taken care of the light rolling player, so the poison is not such an issue anymore, and now we just have two players to deal with. So there again, going into my status, just checking my HP, seeing where I'm at, seeing if I need to heal. I don't have my mixed physic anymore, which means that, you know, I don't have that kind of extra knowledge that comes when my tier pops that I'm low on health. So here we are able to run in, grab a nice jumping attack. This player gets some invincibility frames while they go in and grab that riposte, and we just back off a little bit. We're in kind of a good spot here where these players are in a narrow hallway that has some PvE, and we can go ahead and use our Ash of War kind of liberally here with the double strike or double slash, or I'm kind of blanking on the name, but we use that and its follow-up, and that allows us to take care of that player, and now it is a one-on-one. So we do kind of just get to appreciate the gameplay for all its beauty without any of the distractions of like the HUD, which is kind of nice, but it is a difficult way to play, and having lock-on definitely helps. But I do know some players that actually run this type of setup fairly often and will invade fairly frequently like that. So moving on, we have the Red Man Unveiled, and I love this challenge. I just think it's so funny and creative, and it involves using a Mimic Veil and then immediately getting a riposte out of it. So what's kind of nice is you can actually switch your weapons while you're Mimic Veiled, which is one of the few actions you can do. So we get this very quickly, but there are a number of different opportunities for us to complete this challenge that I thought were definitely worth showing. So the kind of other approach, rather than just a solo host and hitting them right off the bat with a parry, this involves just kind of a much more regular invasion where, you know, we're going to be running a power stance katana setup again because we were running that before, so we're just on the same build, and we'll be trying to just kind of navigate this 3v1 situation as a hunter does come into the world. Really the scariest part is the host swinging a CGS with reckless abandon. It's always hard to deal with. You know, you think that they'll kind of stop swinging and then they don't, and then you walk into it trying to take advantage of when you assume it would make sense for them to stop swinging. We do see a 2-cat setup also from the side of the Phantom, and we have a little bit of latency with the blue, so we're just trying to keep all of that on the top of our mind and use the stairs to kind of keep people funneled. Using this platform adds a little bit of 3-dimensional space that can be really useful, and there we do get a nice jumping attack for a little over 700 damage to take care of one of the Phantoms. So now it's just us and the blue. The host has kind of abandoned us completely, which is nice. We'll absolutely take that. And we go ahead and start using our one-handed moveset a little bit more. And when you're playing against a player with higher latency, the one-handed moveset can be kind of nice because the running heavy attack has a lingering hitbox for the just kind of the couple frames in that area. So something like the crouching light or the jumping L1, those attacks are going to have very quick narrow hitbox timings where you have to be very precise with the latency, but the running heavy has kind of a lingering hitbox and you don't have to be as precise with those running attacks. And then we finally do go for a running L1, which I don't normally recommend with the 2-cat setup, but if your opponent's pretty low on health, you are able to, in some cases, frame trap them, similar to power stance straight sword setup where you can frame trap your opponent with, again, a running L1. So the power stance straight sword is a little bit better when it comes to those frame traps, but if your opponent doesn't roll precisely, the running L1 on the 2-cat setup is pretty much just as good. So we get a little bit of regen going. It seems that like our host has gone back to resummon, so it's nice to just get some HP back. In the meantime, we're not sure if another blue is coming in, we're not sure how many more summons are coming, and it's actually the same player from before, so we get a nice jumping attack real quick, and the host actually snuck up on me. And that was kind of where I was like, this invasion's going kind of well. I think I would like to sneak up on the host a little later on. So we throw some frost prots, which are really nice, getting that physical damage negation for this phantom quite low, and then we are actually able to just finish them off with a unsheath heavy attack, which does a substantial amount of damage. So here we start going into our menu, looking for our parry shield, and then it takes us a minute to realize that we've already got our Mimic Veil equipped. So we're just like looking through our menus trying to find it, walking around a little bit so that they might stay kind of patient, and we've got our Mimic Veil. Now we're setting ourselves up for this parry and riposte. So we're gonna go ahead and walk in. We've only got FP for about one parry, but that's all we need, and we go ahead and grab that soft swap and get the riposte. So I had a ton of fun with that. I just think it's super funny, and this final version of this challenge involves a group of 3. So I Mimic Veiled like right in front of them, and they were all kind of chill, but I wanted to aggro them a little bit so that I could actually get the parry. So I threw out some swings and did manage to hit one of the phantoms, and in this case I was not actually sure who the host was. So we go ahead and back off, drink our physic, apply the Mimic Veil, and we are pretty much set up for our parry at this point. Now we are set up as a tree here, and we don't actually get the Rivers of Blood parry there, but we will, kind of stay patient here, try again. So they go ahead and use their Ash of War. Another time, we're not able to get our Mimic Veil off in time. That is something that I noticed while running this challenge, is that the Mimic Veil just takes so long to put on. So you really need to space appropriately and hope your opponent's not too aggressive. So we do finally get that parry and riposte, and I just thought the other Phantom just kind of wiggling, hitting block a bunch of times in the background there was amazing. So now we're moving on to the Spam Artist, and here we're going to be doing some clumping. So this challenge was really funny. It doesn't involve fat rolling, but I was managing to fat roll at the beginning of this invasion. And really what you're trying to do is win an invasion with only consumables and no pots or greases or perfumes. So pots, greases, and perfumes are going to be all the consumables that really do the most damage, and so you're kind of just limited to spamming these like very low damaging things. So really what you want to be doing, at least my approach, was to just maximize the AR you can get with all these consumables, and for that I was running Golden Bow on a dagger, and then I also had Flame Grant Me Strength, and then I was also using the clumps to try to get a poison proc that would boost my AR even further with the Mushroom Crown, as well as the Kindred Rot's Exaltation Talisman. So here was a successful one, but just kind of the host died on their own. This one was like much more fun in my opinion. We've got 2 players, and I actually did this to them twice. The other invasion was a lot longer and a lot slower, but these players were very susceptible to the clumping build that I had going on here. We also are running a decent amount of regen, because you have to kind of slow play this in most cases, because you're only using these pretty bad consumables, and to make this work you want to be boosting your AR as much as possible, dodging as many hits as possible, and usually backing off quite a bit. So it is kind of a good way to test your spacing and your timing, seeing if you can get off some of these consumables consumables, right in their face, but just out of reach of their sword, that's often going to be your best case scenario. And this player is not running a lot of heavy armor, so we're able to use kukris and knock them out of their incantations, which is great. Really, our explosive stones are going to be the best situation for us because we're running primarily strength, and we do have flame grant my strength, so our AR boosts to those two things are going to be more substantial than most of our other consumables. We also do have some exalted flesh we can use, so really we're just trying to boost that AR as much as possible. Any really competent PvP focused gamers are pretty easily going to be able to successfully destroy this build, but we do have some gamers that do make it possible, so it's fun to challenge them a little bit with something a bit goofy. So this player does go for madness, but they're in this kind of pit of PvE, and that makes it super difficult. And as we kind of throw our explosive stone, they do get caught by one of these little crawling albinarics, and here we are getting a decent amount of damage with our kukris, so they are very slow to throw, but you can get a lot of damage. And here I was super happy I got a free aim kukri right in the head for that player, and then the PvE finished them off. So I really enjoyed this challenge. I had a lot of invasions. I didn't want to put them all in the showcase because they were a little bit slow, but they were a good time, and I did a stream with them, and it was just a lot of fun. So moving on, we have the Way of the Weeb, and here we're going for 6 consecutive unsheath attacks that all connect, and there's no other damage in between. So we'll be going ahead and counting these on screen, and I went for a full invasion that was just unsheathed rather than 6 consecutive ones. So it was okay after the 6 consecutive ones if I missed an unsheath or something like that, but I didn't want to use anything other than unsheath. Now, what's partially difficult about this challenge is the fact that you need to make sure that your opponent doesn't die in the process, because unsheath does a lot of damage, like close to half this player's health in their rune arc. So you need to make sure that they have time and space to get those heals off, and that allows you to reset and adjust your timing. Now, the fact that they were using a colossal sword was very helpful for not missing the unsheaths in between their attacks, just because the recovery is so high, and if you can space some of their moves, or just adjust your timing accordingly, be just out of reach, you're going to be in a great spot. So here we did successfully get all 6 unsheaths, but we missed the 7th one. But we're going to continue to use our unsheath Ash of War regardless of if we have FP or not. We're going full Weeb here, and here we do get a blue summoned in, and they immediately die. It's presumably to gravity. We didn't really see what happened, but it was nice to get a little bit of HP and FP back from that. So again, we're just really going for that unsheath, and having that FP does make a world of difference in terms of your damage output. So here, rather than going for a backstab, another unsheath coming out, this player is really just swinging away, so we love to see that. This is exactly what we're looking for. And just kind of varying our unsheath heavy attack and unsheath light attack I found to be quite nice. Here they are able to successfully roll away before we get that light attack out, even though they were quite low on health. And here again, just a number of attacks. Really just, they should probably be focusing on the crouch pokes, and maybe when they miss the first attack, they should just kind of stop swinging. The great thing about Unsheath is that it does enough poise damage to kind of break up the hyper armor of even a Colossal Sword. So if you are running a two-cat setup, using Unsheath, the running heavy, and the jumping heavy attack, those 3 options against hyper armor based weapons are going to be extremely helpful, because otherwise you're just going to be losing trades to hyper armor, and having these available on the moveset, 3 different attacks even on a non-hyper armor based weapon can be extremely nice, just to be able to kind of counter some of these stronger setups. So we're going to go ahead and just heal up a bit, see if we can get some FP back from a Starlight Shard, and this player is now buffing their Colossal Sword, so not too many of their hits are connecting, but we are able to, again, really just space their attacks quite successfully, and they kind of just keep swinging away. So here they're very low on health. The one thing about Unsheath is it's not great for chase downs, but eventually they just kind of keep swinging well on low health, and we are successful. So I hope you enjoyed these challenges. If you wouldn't mind considering subscribing, as always, I'd appreciate it, and yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day.